why the Rams should be confident heading into their wild card round matchup with the Vikings, and do the Rams have a Cooper Kupp dilemma? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, join the fastest growing Rams YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, Dodgers Nation, Locked On. And, of course, the people's champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, he's back today. And you can follow him on X and Instagram at Travis Rogers. He, of course, is your post-game show host and your pregame show and your halftime show host. He does all the Rams shows. Everything. Pre, half, and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. Of course, you can follow him, like I said, at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, why the Rams should be confident heading into their wild card matchup against the Vikings, and the Cooper Kupp dilemma. Should we see more Jordan Whittington in the playoffs? But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win or lose your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, so before we talk about this game, I have to talk about what's going on here in Southern California, the devastating fires that have ravaged the Southland. The Rams players and the organization have put out some tweets. The Rams tweeted, "Our hearts are with those affected by the Palisades wildfires and the first responders protecting our community. Be safe." Puka Nacua tweeted, "Thank you to all the first responders. God bless the families impacted in Cooper Kupp." He tweeted, "Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone affected by the fires. Thank you to the firefighters, first responders, and everyone else doing their best in unfathomable circumstances." So, yeah, same with us in our thoughts as well. And I think kind of the first question, Travis, is how could this impact this game? You got the team set to practice tomorrow on Woodland Hills. The air quality is said to be unhealthy to very unhealthy. It'll be interesting to see how this impacts this game that is at least a couple extra days that it could have been, considering it's on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, Doug, like you said, first, I'd like to echo what the team said, what the players said. It obviously is it's a scary time here in Southern California. I would assume that most of the people that are listening to Locked On Rams are in and around Southern California, or at least a good percentage of them. So we're thinking of you, and stay safe. And of course, thank you to everybody that is doing their part to help everybody else, the first responders and everybody else. But as far as the game itself goes, look, I don't mean to sound callous with this at all. The NFL stops for nothing, man. It just keeps on rolling. It may get pushed a day. I would be surprised if it did, but never say never. But they really don't stop for much. So I would imagine that the game will go on as scheduled. Maybe it get pushed a day here or there. We'll see what the air quality is like as we get further into the week. But I would be really surprised if there was any meaningful delays, not because there shouldn't be, not because there isn't, a complete and utter devastation like you talked about, just because the NFL really doesn't slow down very often.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right on that one. It is Monday Night Football. It's the National Football League. It's the playoffs. I mean, you saw last season pretty much 99% of the highest rated, most viewed programs in broadcast television were NFL games. It's an absolute machine. So, look, I mean, if they're going to play a game, they're going to play a game. And one of the storylines heading into this one that I was eager to look for, just kind of from a fan standpoint, was the Rams fans turnout, because the Cardinals game, the Ramley was heavily represented. And according to Vivid Seats right now, the Rams are projected to make up 90% of the crowd at SoFi Stadium. So getting Rams fans in that SoFi Stadium, in that playoff environment, is going to be big for that. So that's definitely exciting to see. Now, kind of what we're going to start with here, though, is why the Rams should feel confident. I mean, because you look on paper, this is a Rams team that surprised a lot of people out there by winning this division. And your reward for winning your division and hosting a playoff game is going up against a 14-win Vikings team. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm overly confident here, but for a 14-win team, I think the Rams have a lot to be confident about. And I think the first thing is you beat them once. And as you mentioned throughout the season, really the best that this team has looked this year was against that Vikings team when they beat them in week 8. And it wasn't just how they beat them, it was the confidence. Puka Nacua comes back in that one. They end up having 386 total yards. They held this Vikings offense that has a lot of explosive weapons under 300 yards. So that's the first thing. You beat them once, you can do it again.
Yeah, I think, kind of going back to what you said at the beginning, Doug, I would have my hand in the air as somebody that's surprised that this is a division-winning team for the Rams. I did not think that that's what this season was going to end with, the way that it started. Maybe at the beginning of the year, I was optimistic that they could win the division, but after their 1-4 start, I certainly didn't think that they'd be hosting a playoff game. And then when you, like you said, you get a 14-win wild card team coming to town. But like you said, I think there are some reasons for optimism. Number one, you've played them. Number one, you beat them. Number three, it's at SoFi Stadium. Minnesota will have fans there, but they're not Buffalo fans. They're not Green Bay fans, Philadelphia fans, Dallas fans, Raider fans. There may be people, there may be some numbers. They're nice upper Midwestern folks. They came through the first time and they were about as pleasant people as you're going to run into at SoFi Stadium. So I don't think it's going to be a particularly raucous environment as far as the opposing crowd goes. And then I think the biggest part of all is the Sam Darnold factor. That Sam Darnold has had a terrific, and look, and I'll back up a little bit. I'm a Sam Darnold fan. I remember hearing about him when he was at San Clemente. I lived down in South Orange County and obviously watched him at SC and was the host of the USC pregame show when Sam Darnold was at SC. And I'm a big fan of his. He didn't scare me. He didn't. He's not one. Justin Jefferson scares me. Jordan Addison can have a moment. TJ Hawkinson did not play last time. He's going to play. There's a lot of stuff there, but this is a league that's predicated on head coaches and quarterbacks, and I think Kevin O'Connell's a really good head coach. But I'll just tell you right now, Sam Darnold really doesn't scare me, and that's the part that gives me the most confidence at all, especially after seeing the way he struggled in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, you're a big Sam Darnold fan, so that makes one of us. Of course. Look, I will say this. I did a worldwide group chat just festing up. I went to all my group chats, and I apologize to each and every one of them for saying that Josh Rosen was going to be a better quarterback in the NFL than Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold, even though he's really not the Pro Bowl superstar he's a Pro Bowler this year, but he's not that superstar they hoped he would be. He's at least still in the NFL. Josh Rosen is at the Wharton School of Business for Penn. How'd he get in there? Well, guess what? His great-great-granddad was Wharton. So that's got to help if you're Josh Rosen. But I digress on that point. But that was my next point, is this has been a great year for Sam Darnold. It's been one of the really great storylines in the National Football League, that a guy that's been this journeyman, of course, the Rams, of course, were familiar with him in the season finale, right? You had the Wentz versus Darnold game, the end of the 2023 season, and he goes into this year, and the Vikings, the J.J. McCarthy's out, and then Kirk Cousins is in Atlanta, and you don't expect much. He was in the MVP conversation. Heading into the final week of the season, he had a better passer rating than guys like Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels and Justin Herbert and Jordan Love, but has he turned into a pumpkin a little bit? That's kind of the question I have. You look at the finale against the Lions, he had his lowest completion rate of the season. He had his lowest passing yards of 166, lowest yards per attempt. It was by far his worst game of the season. There's two ways you can look at that. One, that he's due for some positive regression, or two, maybe the bright lights of a game that could win a division got to him. The heavy blitzing really made him, Glenn's game plan against him made him very uncomfortable. And even when he did have some receivers open, he was flushed out of the pocket, wasn't able to make those throws. And he really struggled in the red zone as well. He had 9 throws from the 7-yard line or closer and completed just one of those. It was on a screen pass to Aaron Jones. So I definitely think that's a reason for confidence in that Darnold has to go on the road going up against a Matthew Stafford, a Chris Shula defense that has really been the rock for this team while their offense has struggled in recent weeks. And it's going to be a very difficult homecoming for Darnold. So I totally agree with that point.
Yeah, I think that Sam Darnold has had a great year, but when you look at some of the better quarterbacks in the league, some of the guys that I'm going to mention are in the other half of the draw. Some of them didn't even make the playoffs. But you're not speeding up Patrick Mahomes. You're not speeding up Joe Burrow. They're going to do what they're going to do. You're not speeding up a guy like Josh Allen. You're not going to speed up. Quite frankly, and you look like, I think Jalen Hurts is a pretty chill guy. You can speed up Sam Darnold. And I think that's what we're talking about. Just make him go a little faster than he wants to go. Make him make a decision a half a second quicker than he would like to make it. That I saw some numbers about how he waits longer to throw the ball than almost any quarterback in the league. And the Lions, like you mentioned, had a game plan that was very blitz dependent, made him make decisions very quickly. Now, I also agree with what you said that they're going to address a lot of these issues getting ready for Monday night against the Rams. But I think this is the spot. I think this is the spot where, if you told me here's the NFC playoff field, who is the team that you'd want to play first? I would have picked the Washington Commanders. Who's the team I want to play second? I probably would have picked the Minnesota Vikings. And the Vikings could come in here and win by 4 touchdowns, and you wouldn't have to pick me up off the floor. They're really good. I think the Rams could beat them. I think it's a good matchup for the Rams, and it's mostly because Sam Darnold's their quarterback.
Yeah, and honestly, I think, as crazy as it sounds, I would have taken the Vikings over the Commanders just because of the Rams' struggles against mobile quarterbacks and Jaden Daniels and the fact that they have beaten this Vikings team. But, yeah, I mean, you're kind of splitting hairs with that one. But before we get to the segment, there's 2 teams that have beat the Vikings this season, the Lions and the Rams. The Vikings lost to the Lions in Week 7 and 18. They lost to the Rams in Week 8. Can you beat them and continue that pattern in the first round of the playoffs? We're going to talk more about why the Rams should be confident heading into this wild card matchup and also the Cooper Kupp dilemma. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, from big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Let's be honest, everything's better with FanDuel. You got a little something going on over here. You could, look, last night, a little TGL. Man, I'm not going to lie, a little TGL going on with FanDuel. Why not, right? But right now, if you are a new customer, you can get $5 and you can get $200 in bonus bets. That's a guarantee. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app is going to give you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. For instance, you wanted to get down on that Bay Area team in the TGL last night. I might have been on the other side. I'm just telling you that whatever it is you're into, you like golf, you like playoff football, you like college football playoffs, which are going on right now, just about anything that you can think of, the NBA, the NHL, just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there. And there's new listeners, new viewers. And if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, drop some comments, hit the like button. Also, subscribe to the podcast. I know a lot of new Rams fans that are back hardcore in the mix. You're definitely join that everyday listeners club. So definitely love to have you. Appreciate you. But here in our second segment, I want to switch gears and talk a little about Cooper Kupp, because last 3 games, Kupp has caught 4 passes for 53 yards, no touchdowns. He had no catches against the 49ers in Week 15, had 3 catches for 24 yards against the Jets, and had just 1 catch for 28 yards against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, we have seen stretches for Kupp in recent years, these 3-game stretches where he hasn't been very productive. But the question is, do we increase the role for Jordan Whittington because of what we've seen when he's gotten opportunities? Before Puka Nacua came back and Cooper Kupp came back, he did make the most of his targets. And you saw in his last game of the season against the Seahawks, 86 yards receiving, got 12 yards rushing on a jet sweep. And you saw that nice double move, makes the defender fall down. Yep. It's an interesting conversation, the possibility of seeing more Jordan Whittington as the playoffs roll around.
The next head coach in any sport that I ever run into that doesn't trust his veterans over guys that haven't played will be the first. It's just how it goes. It's just the coaches like guys that have played in big games before, and Cooper Kupp has played in a bunch of big games. Is he the guy he was when he was the Super Bowl MVP? Clearly he's not. Clearly he's not that guy anymore. Is he a guy that can have a day? Absolutely. Is he the best wide receiver on this team? Clearly he's not. That's Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua is WR1 on this team and probably will be for the next several seasons along the way. Is he even the second option offensively? No, he's not. That's Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams is the second offensive option on this team. Does Tyler Higbee's return and implementation of this offense mean that you're going to get less from Cooper Kupp maybe than you did before? Yeah, probably, maybe a little bit. Do you want him out there? 1,000,000,000% you want him out there. And if you're telling me that Jordan Whittington might be a little quicker, a little faster, a little this, a little of that, fine. Give me Cooper Kupp 10 out of 10 times. Cooper Kupp has been through this over and over and over again. He's tough. He adds to your running game. You have to deal with him. He may not be the guy that won the Triple Crown a few years ago, but if you don't do what you're supposed to do against him, he will cook you. He's not going to go out there and have his 15 catches, 150 yards, and a touchdown or two the way that he did a few seasons ago. But he is still a very, very dangerous NFL player that has to be reckoned with. And I would be stunned if there was any limitations in the amount of plays that he had. Now, is he going to get a bunch of targets and a bunch of catches? I don't know. I mean, he could have a 0, he could have 10, and neither one would really surprise me all that much, but he's going to be out there. That's Cooper Kupp we're talking about.
Exactly, right? And there's a couple of things I want to point out. One, the bye week. The fact that it was so long ago, the fact that they did get the rest of those starters, they get that unofficial bye week, that's going to loom large. I mean, that's going to be big for Cooper Kupp, a veteran at this stage, getting some rest, getting re-energized. He can still move the chains with big first downs. He still is definitely additive as a blocker in the run game. But the truth is he that Super Kupp that we saw a couple years ago, that all-pro receiver? I think the answer is no. The truth is also that he's never had fewer than 6 catches and 77 yards in a 3-game span. So that truthfully was the least productive he had ever been in a 3-game span. I got a name I want to throw at you, Travis. Not a football player, a baseball player.
Oh,
let's Walker Buehler. His name's Walker Buehler. Okay. I need to see Cooper Kupp go full Walker Buehler for the Rams in this playoff run. The year that he had, hey, all you remember for Walker Buehler is the "Are you not entertained" pose after striking out Alex Verdugo to win the World Series. I think Cooper Kupp, his tank is not empty. I think he still has a little left, maybe a lot left, if everything goes right, to help this team win not just one, but multiple playoff games.
I think that is an absolutely spot-on comparison. The Walker, like I don't want to say anything bad about Walker Buehler, but Walker Buehler had a bad year right up until he didn't. He not only wasn't very good, he was really bad right up until he was really good. And that's what you get with guys that have been around and that's what you get with guys who, how do I want to say this? Just a locked on podcast that we like to keep it relatively tame here. When you got a guy that's not scared, shall we say, that lets it all hang out, so to speak, I'll take that guy. That's Walker Buehler. That's Cooper Kupp. And I think I love that comparison, D-Mac. I think that is a great, great way to look at it as a guy that if Walker Buehler can go out there and do what he did, Cooper Kupp can go out there and do what he does.
Yeah, and I think with Jordan Whittington, the opportunities are interesting. Like I said, I mean, he was productive in his spots early on, but I mean, kind of look at that 50-yard catch he made with that nice pass from Jimmy Garoppolo, really nice double move that he made right there. He did have he broke some ankles on that play. It kind of makes you wonder if this Vikings team that's very, very good in the first quarter, one of the best in the NFL, averaging almost 7 points in the first quarter. The Rams are one of the worst. They scored 2 touchdowns in their first 2 drives against the Rams in their first meeting. If this Vikings offense catches fire and the Rams are trailing and you don't like what you see from Cooper Kupp early on and you're playing for your season, then maybe do you consider going to a Jordan Whittington? I just think I want everything on the table is kind of my point. Yeah. And I just think that, look, I love Cooper Kupp. Trust me, he's one of my favorite players, not even just Rams, just like all-time athletes as far as LA sports, and just kind of that year he had was so magical, right? I mean, if we have to go back to baseball, we had the 50-50 Ohtani season, nothing going to pass that. But the year he had was extra special as well. And I think too, it's like he's kind of wondering, hey, how much left do I have in my career to actually be in these opportunities? And I think for an athlete that's won a Super Bowl, it's tough to kind of quantify how big of an impact that can have on your performance. I mean, we could see on Monday, holy crap, where the hell has this Cooper Kupp been because of the playoffs?
I'll say it again. It's the same thing with Buehler, and it's the same thing as our coaches and managers And I think fans that have been around a lot and that pay attention and that are not just distracted by the newest, shiniest thing that flashes across their field of vision and say, give me someone who I am certain will not be scared.
Yeah.
And I don't mean scared in a kind of way, but just I'm gonna run the right route. I'm gonna do the right thing. It may not work. I may not be fast enough. I may not be sure enough, but it's not going to be because I panic in the moment. It's not going to be because I'm sped up a little bit. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Sam Darnold. There is no chance Matthew Stafford gets sped up. None. He might play bad, but it's not going to be because he got sped up. Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp will not get sped up. He will not get scared. He will not make a dumb decision in a moment because the moment is really big. Give me as many of those guys as you can in playoff games, and Cooper Kupp's one of those dudes.
Yeah, I think that bears mentioning in a big way. I mean, I think for us, our mere mortals, as civilians, as broadcasters, radio guys, right? I mean, it's tough to imagine these larger-than-life athletes that have made it to that level. Because to get to that level, you had to basically make a miracle happen statistically. How could those guys get nervous in those moments, in those spots? It doesn't make sense, but the truth of the matter is it's a reality. Some guys cannot handle the pressure.
It happens all the time.
It happens. I remember asking Chris Taylor, by the way, not a great time to bring up Chris Taylor because he's had some down seasons, but I had people on my show call him Swing and Miss Chris and Chris Kaler, all that stuff. But I remember asking Chris Taylor, I'm like, are guys born to be postseason players? Can you tell when a guy is ready in the postseason if they're scared of the moment? And what he told me is you can tell by just standing next to a teammate if he doesn't want it, if he doesn't want to be at the plate, if he doesn't want to be in the big moment. I think the same rules apply for the NFL.
I do too. And you bring up another great example of a Dodger player that we're talking about here, which is Chris Taylor had a terrible season. Why do you think Dave Roberts kept putting him out there? It's because of what we're talking about. It's because of this. If I need him to do something, he's going to do it. He may strike out. He may not be able to hit the ball out of the ballpark anymore, but they're going to do the right thing. And Cooper Kupp has not descended to the Chris Taylor level of performance that we're talking about, but the theme is the same.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like a Cooper Kupp red zone touchdown is in the works possibly. But coming up next, got to get Travis's thoughts on Dan Campbell. Was he disrespecting the Rams? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
It's playoff time, and if you're like me, you want to make the most of these final weeks of the season, all this football action, and that's where Prize Picks comes in. If you love football and want a chance to win real money while watching the games, Prize Picks is the place for you. It's the best way to turn your sports opinions into cash with daily fantasy player projections. With Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on player stats, like total passing yards, rushing touchdowns, for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds. I did some TGL on this too last night. Whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your payout or you want to cash out quickly, Prize Picks has got you covered. And with over 10 million members and billions in winnings, it's clear that people are absolutely loving it. So here's a special offer for Locked On NFL listeners. Download the app today. Use the code Locked On NFL. You're going to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Prize Picks. Run your game. Again, download the app today. Use that code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. And how about we're talking about winning. We're talking about money. How about Rocket Money? They help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice. Happens all the time, right? There are subscriptions that you don't even know that you have that you're still paying for, and Rocket Money makes it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending. It helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place. So whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year, Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total, ready for this, 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Okay, Travis, so we're going to have some more time to preview this game. Got a big matchup at crossover for Thursday. Got keys to victory on Friday. But did want to get your take on Dan Campbell. After the regular season finale, the Lions beat the Vikings. He goes to Kevin O'Connell. He shakes his hand. He says, "We'll see you in a couple of weeks." Is that a little disrespect towards the Rams? Because for me, last time I checked, the Vikings still have a game to win, and that's going to be against the Rams. A little presumptuous there. And I just want to say, first of all, rude.
Yes, indeed. I agree with you on that. Yeah. I don't think it was meant to be disrespectful, but I think that it is disrespectful. And I think there's a difference between, I don't think Dan Campbell was thinking, hey, the Rams are a bunch of suckers and the Vikings are going to go in there and walk them up and down the field and be back inside Ford Field in a couple of weeks. I don't think that's what he meant. But if I'm a Rams player, that's what I'm hearing. Look, I'm not a big rah-rah. I'm not a big put a motivational slogan on the wall. Bolton, that's just not what gets my motor running. When I heard that, I'm like, really? Really? You think it's going to be that easy? They did lose in here before, you know. And by the way, the Lions just softened them up the same way they softened them up between week 7 and week 8. I don't know if this is still true, but I know that well into the season, every team that had played the Lions lost the following week. And that was true through like the first 10 or 12 weeks of the season. And that certainly was true when the Vikings came to LA after playing Minnesota the week before. Yes, it was a short week. Yes, it was the return of Puka Nacua. Yes, it was the Rams playing really for their entire season at that point. But the Rams, I think, are one of those teams that, are they a great team? I don't think so. Not this season. Are they a dangerous team? Heck yeah, they are. And what they are is an incredibly tough out. They're well coached. They've got a good quarterback. They don't make a ton of mistakes. They don't commit a ton of penalties. They don't really turn the ball over a whole bunch. They're a really difficult team to beat. And if you think that if Dan Campbell thought that they're just going to walk in here and walk back out, I think he's wrong. Can Minnesota win? Of course they can. It's the playoffs. All of these games, all 6 of these games, both teams have a chance to win these games. But I think that it's going to be a far greater battle than Dan Campbell might have been assuming.
Yeah, and the truth is, the great ones use anything as fuel, even if that's not how it was intended. Right. So I think if you're a Rams player and you want to frame it that way, fine. It gives you extra juice. And I think that if ultimately these two teams do meet up, they're going to bring that back and they're going to have it at the forefront before that match. And I think that this is my theory with Dan Campbell is he's almost like LeVar Ball manifesting this, because their worst nightmare, the worst nightmare for the Lions and Dan Campbell, is for their possible Super Bowl season to be derailed at the hands of Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams. That really would be the worst way that they could go out as a franchise. I mean, it already has to feel like their ex basically broke up with them and married a supermodel and lives in a $1 billion mansion, right? Like SoFi Stadium, like with Matthew Stafford. So to come back again years later and beat the Lions, I'm not saying they're going to beat the Lions if they match up, but that I think is Dan Campbell, the Lions' worst nightmare.
It's funny you say that. I was talking with DeMarco with Trav and DeMarco show, DeMarco Farr, Rams Super Bowl champion. And I asked, obviously the Rams' number one rival are the 49ers, right? It just because it's a division thing, et cetera, et cetera. And I asked him, I said, if the 49ers are 1, are the Detroit Lions number 2 at this point? And it's weird because it happened fast, right? It just, when they made the trade, Stafford coming, Goff going, et cetera, the Rams win the Super Bowl. The Rams get knocked out of the playoffs last year by the Lions. They beat the Rams opening night this year. The Rams and the Lions at least potentially are on another collision course. I'm not so sure if, in just as far as the bad blood and the hostilities go, if the Lions haven't ascended to number 2, at least for this era of Rams football. And I'm with you, D-Mac. I think that if we are talking come Monday night, Tuesday morning, and the Rams have found a way to beat the Minnesota Vikings, that this has some real, genuine heat on it, because I think there's just too many crossed wires between these two organizations.
Absolutely. I mean, the Rams Lions to me is what the Lakers Suns, Lakers Kings, Lakers Blazers, Padres Dodgers, rivalries that aren't going to stand the test of time, but because of the personnel, because of the players on both teams right now, it has more juice than their actual rival, right? The fan bases are going to clash more, right? But the players themselves on the field, look, I mean, give me Rams Lions over Bills Chiefs. I'm dead serious. I mean, the way that how hard you play against these two teams, Stafford, Goff, Detroit, LA, I'm telling you, man, the NFL, I was surprised they didn't cook that somehow to have that for the wild card round. I thought the script writers had already done that. I was preparing for Detroit.
Well, you know who threw a big pile of crap ink all over it? Sam Darnold.
Ghost again, man.
Yeah. Sam Darnold came in and said, "Oh yeah, you think so? Watch this. Watch me not throw the ball to Justin Jefferson all night long." Yeah. So we'll see. The Rams are dogs in their own backyard. So I take that for what it's worth. But I would love to see the Rams and the Lions. I think it would be amazing.
We got to beat the Vikings first, but the bulletin board material is certainly there. But that's it over this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.